This is Friday, August the 29th, 2025. It's noon Central Time. I'm coming to you live from my studio here in Huntsville, Alabama. We're going to talk about Laurel Ridge month 9 blocks. This block has a lot of pieces, and we're going to talk about ways that you can be sure that you're very successful with this block. This is the block with the most pieces in the whole quilt. So the last time I was with you was 2 months ago, and we ended up skipping last month when we were supposed to have the month 8. But since month 8 was a repeat of a block we had done earlier, and Ricky was working on his Odette project, it was just decided that he was going to use the Friday date for that. So free quilt class from Ricky. It's on. You can easily find it on our go to Learn, and then go to Ricky Tim's classroom. And he had 4 videos of the Odette project. He had there's patterns, free patterns for you to pick up. And I think you're still, if you can get your quilt top finished within a short period of time, I think from now till September sometime, someone who posts their completed top is going to be the lucky winner of Ricky quilting their top. So that's just an added on bonus. So that's something for you to look at. Another one of the benefits of being involved with thequiltshow.com. I've got some things on the wall there so you have something to look at. My quilt top is finished, and it is at the Long Arm Quilter at the moment. So when I come back to you again, maybe I'll have it completely finished for you to see. I'm getting it quilted there so that that can be completely done. But I put some things up on the wall just so you'd have something to look at. I hate to have an empty design wall. If I walk in here and my wall is empty, I feel like I have an empty mind. So the big Texas star right above my head, right there, I had that draped over the chair last time, and someone asked about it, and I forgot to talk about it. It is an ongoing project. I think I started this more than 25 years ago because I've been in this house 25 years, and I think I started it at the other house. I saw a tiny little picture on the internet, tiny little picture of that central star, 5-pointed stars. I just thought it was fabulous. I contacted the person that had made the little picture. It was just really an image, and asked if I could turn it into a quilt, and he said yes. And that was a long, long time ago. And of course, many computers since, and I don't have that piece of paper anymore that he said I could. But anyway, so I put that center together. It was very intensive mathematically. In fact, I worked in 64ths of an inch, and I don't recommend that. I'm never going to teach this because nobody but me would want to do this. But I got that center done, and I loved it. And then I drafted out the background, the big white pieces. I drafted it and cut them out of freezer paper. And I put the only kind of fabric that I could find then. It was kind of a yellowy off-white sort of a muslin. And I put it together, and I didn't really love it. And it got put in the drawer for 20 some years, put away. And when I pulled it back out again a few years ago, I decided I wanted to change the background. So I took it all apart and I made a new background. And anyway, so it's coming along and it's going to get bigger. I've written about it. You can, on my blog in the search box, type in Texas Star, and you can see some of the other options of the ideas that I've got to enlarge it. I love it so much, it's going to get enlarged. So that's one of my works in progress. The other quilts that are up there are 3 are classes I'm teaching in Houston next month. So I will be in Houston from October 4th to October 12th. And these are I'm teaching 6 classes and giving 2 lectures. These are the classes that still have space. The one in the upper, I always point the wrong way. That one is Charming Sampler, and that's an all-day class. That one's on Monday, October the 6th. That's a great class, although they're small blocks, and you already know how to do small blocks, but there's a lot of tricks and ways to make many of these blocks fast. The one below it is Western Sun. That's classes Saturday. Would be the 11th of October. That's an all-day class. And it's a good one too. You learn just an amazing, interesting, fun, fast way to make that big center block. And we'll do some paper piecing for those who want to paper piece the geese, and we'll do some not paper piecing if you don't want to paper piece the geese, and I'll give you other alternatives if you don't want to make geese at all. Then the one below Texas Star right there is one of my very favorites. That's Antique Rose Star. That class is on Wednesday. and it is a 3-hour Wednesday afternoon hand piecing class, and I've kitted it all. All you need is a pair of scissors, and you don't even need a pair of scissors. Somebody will lend you a scissors to cut your thread. I've got the kit with everything in it that you need. It's a 3-hour class on Wednesday. It finishes at 5 o'clock, and you're ready to go right to preview night and start shopping and seeing the quilts. So anyway, those 3 classes I still have openings in. The others are full. The lectures are something that you can sign up at the door and pay at the door, and those are on Friday. One's at 10:15 and one is at 4:30. Okay, so this month let's talk about the little block. It's called 9-patch star blocks, and it has a lot of pieces. How many pieces, you say? Well, I thought I would count them. So about an hour ago, I sat here and I counted them. There are 45 pieces in this 5-inch block. So yes, they're small. Okay. As I talk about in classes all the time, pieced blocks, I mostly like to piece quilts. There's only 3 things really we can do wrong in the piecing a block process: the cutting, the sewing, and or the pressing. So when you're making little blocks like this with small units, the cutting is really important. They need to be the right size, as close as you can get them to being the exact size that they need to be cut. Then you have to sew them accurately. If you've cut them perfectly and your seam allowance is bigger than a quarter or smaller than a quarter, that's going to throw things off. So you're going to check it as you go. And then finally, there's the pressing. And a lot of students I watch all the time, they start pressing from the front side. They'll put the iron right down on top of the seam, and they will press a nice little pleat in there. So if your units don't measure the way they should, check first for a pressing problem, because those are the easiest to fix. So I'm going to show you those things in a minute. I'm going to switch to the document camera here. I want to remind you that my quilt top was done 2 months ago. And yes, I fixed the mistakes, and I'm going to talk about that at the end of today here. So hang around for about 20 minutes, and I'll tell you about the mistake I knew about and the 3 others I didn't that somebody told me about. But we'll get back to that. But I made this block for you. So number 1, to prove I could. And number 2, to make sure that I understood how it goes together so I could help you with that process. But I use the leftover fabrics that I have. I have a baggie full of these leftover Laurel Ridge fabrics. I have the spring kit, and I just pulled fabrics from there. So what you're going to see in mine is not the spring fabrics from the kit the way the pattern laid it out. So don't be confused by that. It's just mine are just, I could have made them out of any other kind of fabrics, but I decided I'd stick with Laurel Ridge because I had plenty of these scraps that would work. So let's go to the document camera. Okay, so the first thing is that this is the little block that we're making with all the little pieces, 45 pieces. And as usual, the instructions tell you exactly what size to cut, how many pieces you need to cut, and strips and size and all that kind of stuff. Okay. So I did that, and then I started working on the pieces. We're going to make this. The great thing about the way Lynn has written the patterns, and it's the way I work as well, I oversize and custom cut. That's a Sally Collins phrase. Make things bigger, especially with these small units. Work with a little bit bigger sizes. You're kind of giving yourself some grace. You're giving yourself some insurance. Work a little bit bigger and then trim things down. I often say you don't have to sew to perfection if you can trim to perfection. So that's what we're after with these pieces. Okay. So when you think about this, it's a 5-inch block, and it's really a 5-patch. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units across, 5 units down. So that means that with it being 5 inches finished, that each of these units are 1 inch finished. And that means when it's sewn into the quilt. Obviously, the square has to be cut 1.5 because it needs a seam allowance all around. Lynn has great instructions on how to make the half square triangles. She likes to make 8 at a time, and I like to make 8 at a time now too. I've picked that up from this block of the month. I do this now frequently with my own quilts that I'm making. It's just fast and easy. If 8 is a good number to make, that's what I do. So I make those, and then I trim them and make sure that they're right. So just talking about these 2 units at the moment. When I start to sew things together, what I'm talking about is checking yourself as you go. trust but verify. If this is exactly 1.5 and this is exactly 1.5, and they started out those exact sizes. When I sew these two pieces together, I'm going to check it to make sure that it is now 2.5. It's 1 plus 1 finished size plus 1/4 on either side. This needs to be 2.5. And I check it from the center out. I always measure from the center out. So all I have to know is what is half of 2.5, and that's 1 1/4. So I lay the 1 1/4 line on the center seam. I always start looking at the center first. I lay it on the center seam, and then I look and see, and I had a little teeny bit to snibble off over here, and this one, see, I could snibble off just a little bit more. It's a little bit wider than 1.5. Because I know this is on the outside edge of the block, I'm going to leave that, and then I will ultimately double check the entire block when it's finished, and I can trim that off again. I often say don't do the hard thing twice. So I'm not going to worry about this outside edge right now, but it is very important that any edge I'm going to sew another piece to, like this seam here is going to join this little quarter. These are called quarter square triangles or hourglass blocks. Most of us would call them a quarter square triangle. That's a half square triangle. But if you looked in Barbara Brackman's Encyclopedia of Piece Patterns, you'll often find this described as an hourglass block. They're not usually made this small. Okay, so I double check every seam. I'm going to sew this to this, and then I'm going to check, is that 2.5? Is this 2.5? And if it's not, I'm going to fix it and trim it up. Either my seam allowance is too fat or too skinny. That's almost certainly what happened. Or there's a pressing problem, so make sure first that you've pressed really good and flat. All right. I won't even talk about the 9 patch in particularly because the instructions are great for making the 9 patch. Lynn's got the numbers, how many strips you need and what size they need to be. You sew them together. You need 2 of these and 1 of the center block. I love this plaid fabric. When I first got the kit, it didn't thrill me, but using it in the quilt, it's so interesting how a complex fabric like this plaid, and it's really not complicated, it's interesting. And the fact that it's so interesting, it makes the block look so much more involved. This is simply 9 little squares of fabric, but that plaid really adds a kick. So you'll check as you sew these together using Lynn's instructions. You're making this row and then a different out of the same fabric, and then the middle one there. And she tells you exactly how wide they should be. Obviously, they should be 3.5 when you sew these the strips together, because they have to be 3.5 when you cut them apart. I am a huge fan of little rulers that are the size you need them to be. This year, we've been working with the 5.5. This was not a size ruler I had, so I had to get it. And this one actually this is my 5. Okay. 5.5 must be over at the other place. But this is a 3.5, and I'm making some great little blocks now for a long-term project I'm doing, my sew-along, and the 3.5 is the finished size. So it's just really a great little size when I can easily trim around the all 4 sides to make sure that it's right. Okay, so easy, not hard at all. These are a little bit more complex. So let's talk about these. Okay, and I did one thing different from the instructions when I made these little quarter square triangle blocks. Okay, we start by making half square triangle blocks, in this case the green and white, and then you put 2 of them together. And well, Lynn's instructions say when you get the half square triangles done, the first step, when you're just making a white and a green half square triangle, to trim it to 2 1/4. Then you mate them up, you marry them up, put them on top of each other, and double check yourself before you sew it. This is what you're after. You want that center to exactly align. Because we've pressed toward the green, the darker fabric, this seam goes up, the one on the bottom is going down, and that will help to nest. And I just use my fingers to feel that they're together, and then I check and make sure that I like the way it looks. I drew a pencil line, and then I sewed a 1/4 inch on either side of the line. If you want to draw your sewing line, you would use a 1/4 inch, that 1/2 inch ruler that Lynn has. And oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, she has a great almost 8-minute video this month. I strongly recommend you look at it. She takes you through all of these steps. Watch it all the way through first. And then when you're working on the pieces, you can just watch the bit of it that you're working on, stop the video and see it. So it's a really good video. And she has put a lot of time into these videos, and I hope that you'll make sure that you take advantage of those. But the instructions tell you when you make the green and the white half square triangles to trim those to 2 1/4 and then put them together. And I did that with this one. Okay. And it worked just fine. And I cut it up. Then I did it first, and I cut it apart and I trimmed it. And then I made sure, then you trim it down again. Well, I thought, there's no reason to make that first trimming to 2 1/4. I call that, don't do the hard thing twice. Why would I want to trim it all and knowing I'm going to have to trim it again? So this is one that I didn't trim. I simply made the half square triangles, excuse me, the way the instructions tell you to make them. Put 2 half square triangles together, one green going on that side and the other green going on this side. Double check, make sure that it looks like you want it to look. Okay. And then I drew the pencil line and sewed a 1/4 inch on either side of the pencil line. Then I was able to cut it in half. So, and I didn't have to trim it until I got the piece to this stage, because this is the one that has to be the correct size. So that's just what I did differently when I realized I didn't need to trim the half square triangles. I only needed to trim the 1/4 square triangles when I got them done. So after you cut these apart, they look like this. Okay, and you can press them. I love this cute little twirly seam. I was in Colorado Springs last week teaching a charming sampler class, and I showed this to everybody, and people who hadn't seen it before said, "Oh, they were just gobsmacked how fabulous it was." And people who had seen it before but often couldn't make it work were thrilled to learn the trick to how to make it work. So it's not difficult. It's just a matter of making sure you're pushing in the correct order. The great thing about that is that you really get a nice flat center. Okay, so that's what I was after. But in using Lynn's size, we end up with this, but we have to trim it to 1 1/2, which is this. Okay, so we're going to go from this size to this size. And you need to do that accurately. All right, so I would start with this, and I always measure, remember, from the center out. 1 1/2. Half of 1 1/2 is 3/4 of an inch. So I'm going to put my diagonal line on the center, and I want the 3/4 of an inch line. It's right there, coming this way on the diagonal and that way on the diagonal, and you double check. And if you're living right and you've done everything right, you've got the corner up here, you've got a 1 1/4 over here, or 1 1/2, excuse me, 1 1/2 over there, a 1 1/2 here, and a 1 1/2 there. If you don't, it's almost certainly because you sewed crooked. And I've been known to do that myself. If you don't sew really straight, I can see where this one's got a little bit of the bend. Okay, but that's how I would do it. I would use my rotary cutter. I'm right-handed, up and over, turn it around 100%. And now I put the rotary cutter back, or the ruler, exactly on the lower side that I've just trimmed, because I know that's right, and finish trimming the other 2 sides. Okay, so I'm going to go from this to this, 1 1/2. Yes, there's some waste, but it's a heck of a lot easier than trying to work with these little tiny pieces. I could tell you exactly what size to cut these so there would be no waste at all, but in order for that to work, you have to do the 3 things I talked about perfectly: the cutting, the sewing, and the pressing. And the pencil line has to be as fine as you can possibly make it, because it adds some variation as well. So that's the thing that I did differently. I chose not to, after I realized I didn't have to, I chose not to trim this unit, the half square triangles, before I turned them into 1/4 square triangles. And I hope that makes sense. I have written about this on my blog. You can, if you prefer to see it in words and writing, the blog went up this morning, so you can see that. Okay, let's look at our little block again. Okay, so I've got the pieces laid out. This is put together in 3 sections. We have a top row, a bottom row, and a middle section. Obviously, one of these little guys has to go in here, but he's way too big. And then one of these is going to go, well, it's already there. Okay, so it goes like that. Okay, so that's how that goes. Put these out where you can see them and make sure you've got them right. I'm here to tell you it'd be very easy to get one of these turned around the wrong way. And this one is going to, I always say that these, like they're kissing each other. These little blue points are coming together. So that's a way you want to make sure that they're going. But you got your 9 patch in the middle, and it needs a side piece over here and another side piece over here. Then a top row and a bottom row, put it together. Okay, so let's look at another nifty thing that Lynn has done. She has, we used this once before for another block, what she calls a layout sheet. And this is the one that I got months ago. And when I pulled this out to work on the block and I watched her video, I saw that when you look at this block, and this is what her block looks like in the video, these green triangles are on the outside edge, outside on the right, outside on the top, outside on the left, and outside on the bottom. When I looked at this layout sheet, I went, aha, wait, something's different here. These have been given a quarter turn. Here the green is north and south, and we have white on the outside edge and white over here on the outside edge. Okay, so I got in touch with Lynn. I said, got a little bit of an issue here, and I think we need to change this, because her video and the quilt block that is made in her quilt, both in the spring that she's doing now and the autumn that was done months and months ago, probably last year, that is what we have all the pictures of, does not have the blocks laid out like this. It has them laid out like this, okay? Now, and I went back and forth with her a couple times, and you know, this is perfectly fine. If you want to do it like this and you like the way it looks, that's fine. It's actually, you know, it depends on how you're oriented. If you're I'm a symmetrical kind of girl. So if I want these greens to all align like this, where these greens are all going top to bottom, then this is perfectly fine. If you want it to look exactly like Lynn's quilt, they need a quarter turn. Green on the outside. Green on the outside, green, green, green on the outside. It's your quilt, you get to decide. One is not right and the other wrong. They're just different from each other. It's laid out exactly the same, but you decide which way you prefer. So we did what you have in your layout now. These have been rotated, these have been changed, so that your layout block page looks exactly like Lynn's block, like the video and the block she makes in the video, and like this right here. So this is pretty nifty. I've never seen a designer who did this before. And so what she's got for you here is this layout that you can actually, these are the actual size that these are supposed to be. And her idea is that you lay these out here before you start sewing, so that you make sure that you get all the pieces exactly the way they're supposed to go. So I think that's very clever. I've never seen another designer who does it, and Lynn does it on quite a few of hers. She has other patterns that you can purchase from her that are available on her website, other blocks of the month and things like that. So anyway, but I just wanted to mention to you that if yours get turned around, you could decide that maybe you were fine with that anyway. You decided you weren't going to change them. It's your quilt, so you get to decide, and neither way is right or wrong. And really, in the grand scheme of things, people looking at your quilt are not even going to be able to see that. But anyway, it's up to you. So, okay. So once again, as I talked about these, my biggest takeaway for working with small pieces like this is join them together, and I join two at a time, and I check this to make sure it's right. I've already told you that. So this one, I make sure that it's 2.5, make sure this is 2.5. When I put this one on here, now it needs to be 3.5, because it's 1, 2, 3 finished, plus 1/4 inch on either side. This is 3.5. This one, when he gets his partner over here, he's 3.5. And I will finish this block. It'll go in my orphan block bag, and someday may work its way into a quilt full of orphan blocks. But then when you get the center section, it should be 5.5 by 3.5. These pieces, when you check yourself and you make this entire row, it needs to be 5.5. If it's not the right size now, it will not miraculously become the right size when you do the next thing. It only gets worse. So you want to check yourself as you go. That's just my best advice. I call it trust but verify. In a perfect world, this 1.5 and this 1.5, I sewed together completely accurately. I pressed it flat, and it is exactly the right size. But I'm going to verify, because I know that I have a tendency to sew a bit of a skinny seam allowance, and then I need to trim off a little extra. And I'm talking about threads, not a big vast. It's so small you wouldn't even see it with the naked eye. I've seen students pick it up and go, yeah, that's about 2.5. check it. That's what you have a ruler for. Make sure that it's right. So, okay. My only other advice is take these slow. You are making 16 of these this month. No reason to be in a rush. That little 3.5-inch block square ruler, I was real taken with that. So that's just a neat little thing. All right, let me go back to the webcam. That gives you all the information about this little guy. And as I said, my blog is up today too, and it has that some more pictures of this kind of stuff and a little more discussion about this. People, I'm a Yankee originally, although I've lived in the South since 1975, 50 years. I can go into Yankee mode, particularly when the clock is running here. And I talk a little fast sometimes, I know. And this is the slow version. I could really talk fast if I wanted to. Okay. I'm going to look for questions in a minute and see if you have any about this. Okay, I will do that while you ponder those quilts behind me. Let me see if I can get over there. All righty. Oh, cool. We got some this morning. That's really cool. I had a wonderful time in Colorado Springs. My next 2 blogs that I've written coming up September 7th and 14th, we'll talk about that trip. Really great. San Antonio, there's Melanie. All right, San Antonio, I want to come there. Terry, hi, Terry, Southwest Florida. It's my girlfriend, Terry. I met her when I visited her guild. Woodland, California. Susan Skeel, when are we going to start putting these? Oh, okay. Susan's question, she says, when are we going to start putting these blocks together? She's talking about assembly. That's a great question. And I'm going to save it for just a minute when I get back to not looking at these questions, because it's part of my discussion about what I did wrong and how I had to fix it. But that's a good question, Susan. And the answer is November 1st is when the assembly instructions are going to start being available. All righty, North Dakota, Deep River. Cindy says she loves my hair. Yeah, I'm liking this big fluffy head of hair too. It's wash and wear hair. Do nothing to it. I lucked out in the hair department. Sunny San Diego, Webster. Good morning, Santa Rosa, North Carolina. I lived in North Carolina for several years in the Marine Corps years. Maryland. This month was the 50th anniversary of my becoming a Marine Corps officer, and that I celebrated that day, August 15th, 50 years ago. Hard to believe. All right, there's links to the Odette Project, Louisiana. She's enjoying this very much. Good. Barbara Fay. All right, great. It's a beautiful block. All right. Thank you, grandmother. Paper, the directions for the quarter books are turned correct. Yep. When is the reveal of the Melody from San Antonio wants to know, when is the reveal of the next BOM? Early November. Alex is going to do that, and I've got a blog or a live already scheduled to talk to you about it. I think that's November 10th is when I'll be up, so she will be before that. I can't wait to get started. It's fabulous. It is just fabulous. So, okay, let me come back to you. Okay, so Susan's question about assembly. Remember 2 months ago, and if you don't remember, if you go back and look at the month 7 blog, I had the quilt top on the wall, and I said that there was a mistake, and my head was hiding it, and I would show you in a minute what I had discovered. When a friend of mine came, saw the quilt on the wall, and went, Barbara, something's not right here. And I said, oh, don't tell me that. But she was correct. Something was not right. I had an entire panel on the left side middle, so it was right behind my head, that I turned 180 degrees. These units are put together, not put together in long rows, because we have a center of this quilt. They're going to be put together in a top section, a bottom section, and then 3 sections of the middle. At least I think. I don't have Lynn's instructions yet on how to assemble it. I had to put together mine, figuring it out. So that's the way I ended up doing it. And her instructions may be different. And when I get them, I'll let you know. But I had this entire piece, the unit, it was big, almost the middle third of the quilt. I turned it around. And I told you 2 months ago, this is going to take me 2 hours to fix. And I was spot on. It took me 2 hours to fix. I had to pick it out, turn it around, and sew it back in without disassembling the entire quilt. So there's a lot of set-in seams to make that happen. But I got it done. But here's what happened that later that day. Other people who were watching the video and who had looked at my picture of my quilt had said, "Oh, I see other mistakes," and she didn't mention them. It's because she didn't know about them. I had not seen the other mistakes. I had 3 blocks. They were above my head over there. They were the big blocks, the half square triangle blocks with just the 2 pieces, the big ones. I had 3 of them, each in a different row, turned the wrong way, a quarter turn the wrong way. It wasn't an 80-degree, 90-degree turn. No, 180. It was a quarter turn. Ugh. So I fixed those too. It took 3 hours to fix those because that was 3 separate rows. So for those of you who are starting to put this together and who are eager to put this together, as you start to get the blocks done and you want to do that, I can't stress enough the importance of double, triple checking yourself. As you lay the units out, make sure they're turned the correct way. Take a photograph and then look at the photograph. You will see something in a photograph much faster than the eye will see it just looking at it on the wall. I sure wish I had done that. It would have saved me 5 hours of aggravation and a lot of work. Mine is fixed. It had to be fixed. There was no way I was going to leave it low that way. If it had not been fixed till after it was quilted, like, oh well, it's a design decision. But no, it needed to be fixed, and so I fixed it. Design walls, an easy way, if you don't have a space, and I built this studio, I designed the studio specifically for me to work in. And I knew right where I wanted the design wall to be. It's opposite my sewing machine. I can see what I'm doing. And I still missed it. I put it up on the wall. I was in a hurry. I just kept going, oh, that's right. And I just missed it. And I certainly missed those 3 in the row that were sewed incorrectly. But a simple way, if you don't have a permanent design wall, you don't have a space like this, 4x8 foam core or insulation board, 4 foot by 8 foot, that you can get at the big box stores, the Lowe's and the Home Depot and places like that. You can easily, they're not expensive. And 2 of those put together is 8 foot by 8 foot. And that's pretty good size. It's not big enough for this particular quilt, but they're lightweight. And they will store, I cover them, mine is covered with warm and white. That's been on the wall 25 years. Warm and white cotton batting. And that's what's on my wall. Some people use the backside of a flannel tablecloth. I never had luck with my blocks sticking to that, the fuzzy side, the flannel side. If you don't have a vehicle that's big enough to bring home an 8-foot sheet of foam core, the stores will cut them in half for you. Now you'll have 4 that are 4 foot square. It'll fit in your car, 4 foot square. Wrap it with white batting, or that's what I prefer, a cotton batting. And then you can just attach them to each other with binder clips would do it. Just something that you could prop against a wall. As you lay the pieces out, you can see what it is that you're doing. If they're 4 foot by 8 foot, when you're done using them, those 2 big 8 foot long boards will fit under a twin size bed or behind a door. I could stick it right behind my open door that would come in here. Nobody would see it except when I needed them. And then of course 4 foot square would be easy. So that's just an easy little trick for generating a very helpful design board or design wall for your space. Okay. Alrighty. So I did fix those. As I said, I didn't know about the other 3 that were in there. And what happened is people who were watching last time realized that I wasn't talking about those mistakes, which they clearly saw because they thought maybe she didn't know. And I didn't know. And I really appreciated that one person, and I meant to look up her name today. And if you're here, thank you so much. The person who, she tracked me down by email from the blog and sent me a forum notice. And, and I know it's hard to say. I'm sure the person started with, I hate to tell you this, but I saw things you didn't mention. I was so appreciative that she let me know about those things then. I would have been really dismayed with myself to get it all done, get that big hunk fixed that I knew I had to fix, and then later find out that there were 3 more small blocks turned around. So thank you, thank you, thank you. There's a way to be gentle with people to say, I'm not sure if you know this or not. And she did that. And I was really, really helpful, thankful and grateful that she did that for me. So anyway, you will get to see my entire quilt, if not next month, the month before, after, because I have to bind it, obviously, and get it finished. But it is at the Long Arm Quilter now, and I'm just having an edge to edge done. We picked a really great feathery design that I liked, and we played with some terrific color of thread, so it's going to be terrific. Okay, next month's live is Friday, October 3rd. We're going to make plaid stars, and there's only 8 of them. So it's another reason you don't have to rush this month if you don't get all 16 of these done, because with 45 pieces, that's a lot. Because we're only making 8 of the plaid stars, and they're just really simple to make. So that's what's coming up in October for month 10. The very next day, October 4th, I fly to Houston, and I will be in Houston until the next Sunday. So I'm down there for 8 days. I'm teaching 6 classes and giving 2 lectures and doing a sampler. If you're there and you see me flying by, be sure you say hello. I hope to see some of you in class. That'll be really great. The ones that I put up on the wall there are the classes that I have that have openings. The others have wait lists, but often people do drop out. So if there's a class that you're particularly interested in, I know the Oh My Stars class is filled in 20 minutes from when registration opens. So that one has a wait list. But the other thing I'm going to tell you now is that, and it goes back to Susan Skeel's question about when are we going to start assembling these. The November, month 11, gives us some more blocks and just gets you started. And month 12 is the assembly. Because many people join the quilt show in November when the reveal is made, the next year's block of the month, many people join in November. And that means that their annual membership is up before December 1st. And just as a courtesy, I think this is wonderful that the quilt show people do it this way. Rather than say, well, if you want month 12, you have to renew for next year or buy 1 month's membership, we are simply going to release both month 11 and month 12, November 1st. So you will get all the assembly instructions November 1st. You will get the center block instructions November 1st, even though those are month 12 instructions. That way you don't have to renew if all you want to do is finish the this year's block of the month. Now, when you see next year's renewals, not a question. You are going to want to get this next one. Remember, it's free. You pay $49 for your year's membership. They just taped last week in Louisville, and Alex is going to be showing us stuff. And if you're on Facebook, you've been looking at the pictures. They have great shows coming up. Several of those people are friends of mine that are guest artists, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the great job that they did. There's several classes, several shows coming, and these are over the next 6 months. So there's great content still coming. This is the best bang for your buck in the quilt world as far as I'm concerned. And they didn't pay me to say that. I have been saying that since day one when I joined the quilt show many years ago before the first show even aired. And there's only 2 things I would, if I had to give up all expenditures for quilting, the 2 things that would be the last for me to stop paying for is my local guild membership and thequiltshow.com. That's it. So I'm going to take one quick look back to see if there's any more questions. I always answer your questions on the forum. Please feel free to ask me there. You can get to me through the, Terry agrees. And Barbara, I think I just answered the question about when are we doing the center. That's just month 12, but it's that will come out November 1st. All right. Oh, and Pat says both Home Depot and Lowe's deliver. That's her plan to get, she's getting ready to put up a design wall. It changes everything. It just changes your life when you get somebody, what is the quote on the wall behind you? I've talked about that earlier at this live. So go back in and see what it says. And Melanie, I asked her the question about when is the reveal of the next VOM. Somewhere right around the 1st of November. All right, let me go back over here. And okay. All right. Well, that's going to do it for today. I only ran over a few extra minutes, and I hope you're having a good time getting this finished. I know by now I'm always ready to get started on the next project. And for the next 2 weeks, I'm going to be teaching on 2 cruises We leave, oh gosh, Wednesday, and we're gone for more than 2 weeks. My husband goes with me on the cruise trips. 10 days New England, Canada, followed by 5 days to Bermuda. Tough life, but somebody's got to do it. So looking forward to those scripts. And my blog's coming up will show you what the projects are for the cruises. Anyway, it was great seeing you. I hope that you're moving along with this project.